If the ex cries, the current one loses. This sentence often echoes in my heart, like an immutable law. The atmosphere was a little subtle at the class reunion. After 7 years of love, there was only a cold gap. Jessica, my girlfriend, kissed her ex-boyfriend Ryan under the encouragement of everyone. At that moment, I didn't react at all. Who would have thought that I would lead the applause and said with a smile, "One more." Jessica's eyes wandered across my face, and she was obviously stunned. That look was full of confusion, anger, guilt, and a hint of fear, as if she had done something wrong. "Ryan and I are just friends," she almost hurriedly explained, her voice a little hurried. Her tone seemed tough, but in fact it was full of defense. I didn't respond to her immediately. Before she could continue, I heard a classmate whisper, "Jessica, you're going too far. William is still here." Ryan was also a little drunk, and he looked at me provocatively, as if waiting for me to explode. "Do you want to stay in a hotel for the night?" I smiled. My tone was sarcastic, and the meaning was obvious. Everyone could hear it. Jessica obviously didn't like my attitude and immediately denied it. "William was just joking. Don't be so sensitive. Besides, Ryan and I broke up a long time ago. We're over a long time ago. Don't worry. William won't be so stingy." Ryan also smiled and looked directly at me, as if waiting for me to nod. At this time, the whole room fell silent, and everyone's eyes were cast towards me, with complex expressions on their faces, curiosity, expectation, and even a kind of gloating. I just smiled. My heart no longer wavered. Jessica and Ryan's interaction became more and more natural, and their topics seemed to have returned to the past. Jessica laughed from time to time, as if I was no longer there. I once thought that my love with Jessica could last forever. 7 years, in my opinion, was enough to prove our deep love. But the reality is that time has taken away the passion we once had, leaving only my endless humility and anxiety. She was the school beauty and was once admired by countless people. Every time I walked with her on campus, there were always people looking at her with envy, as if she was the dazzling star and I was just a shadow beside her. I tried my best to love her and share my daily life with her. Seeing a cute stray dog, taking a photo of a beautiful sunset, or even encountering vegetables with strange shapes in a market, I couldn't wait to share them with her. But every time, she just said 2 words, "Boring." I always had too much patience with her coldness, thinking that as long as I was humble enough and gave enough, I could move her and eventually break her alienation from me. However, the more humble you are, the more you fail. After every quarrel, we would enter a long Cold War period. I remember the worst time. I was so angry that I overturned the coffee table at home, and the fruits were scattered all over the floor. I thought I was used to her indifference, until every quarrel, I realized that I still couldn't bear the emptiness. "William, I'll explain to you when we get back." Jessica suddenly spoke, her tone seeming a little understated, as if all this was not worth paying too much attention to. I looked at her and shook my head gently. "It's okay. I'm used to it anyway." She didn't say anything else, but continued chatting with Ryan, as if I didn't exist at all. The two of them recalled the past without hesitation, with laughter in their words, and Jessica giggled from time to time, as if I was no longer a part of her life. Even in front of me, the two of them raised their glasses to each other, as if jokingly, and at that moment, I couldn't help but be stunned. The looks around me became complicated. Some looked contemptuous, some gloated, and some had a little sympathy. I felt like a lonely bystander, unable to participate in their world. How long had it been since Jessica smiled at me like this? Her relationship with Ryan made me feel extremely unfamiliar. The once gentle smile had long disappeared, replaced by a sense of indifference and alienation. If they really went to the hotel together tonight, I would not be surprised. Jessica and Ryan, their relationship has long been more than just friends. It's just that they used to be a little restrained, at most revealing a little ambiguity when chatting. Gradually, this temptation has become more and more bold. Today's cup of wine, tonight's drunken kiss, all make me feel sick. I suppressed my displeasure and stood up with a smile. "You guys go have fun. I'm going to go home first. I have to go to work tomorrow." After that, I picked up the cigarette and left the room calmly. The whole scene became silent and subtle. Everyone's eyes were focused on me, some with the mentality of watching a show. I stood in the corridor outside the restaurant and took a deep puff of cigarette. The smoke spread in the air. With each puff, I felt calmer. Although my heart was churning, I knew that I had become numb. The past was no longer important. Jessica's indifference made me more sober. Back in the rented house, this simple place still makes me feel warm. The rent is more than 2,000 yuan, with 3 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. Jessica once said that this is our home. Although it is simple, in my eyes, this is the place I want to protect the most. Lying on the sofa, I fell asleep a little dazedly until I heard the sound of Jessica pushing the door open. I knew she was drunk again. I didn't even need to open my eyes to see. I knew she was back by the familiar footsteps. Sure enough, she called out drunkenly, "I'm back," when she walked in. She was used to my meticulous care and always expected me to help her with everything: fruits, tea, foot bath water. All these details were taken for granted in her eyes. But today I didn't do anything, even pretending to be asleep, and didn't respond to her calls. Jessica called out again, and this time she finally noticed something was wrong with me today. In the past, no matter how late she came home, I would prepare everything for her as much as possible. But today, all the habits were changed. At that moment, I felt an indescribable relief. A few minutes later, Jessica finally returned to the sofa. She made herself a cup of water and lay down silently. That night, I didn't even give her a cup of sobering tea. The next morning, when Jessica woke up, I was already preparing a report for today's meeting. I didn't make breakfast for her, didn't cook her favorite half-boiled eggs, and didn't pour the milk. Simple life, no longer that complicated care, as if there was an invisible wall between us. I drank too much last night, and Ryan asked the designated driver to take me back. She tried to make a joke, but there was a hint of blame in her words. The blame was not because she cared about me, but because I didn't continue to provide her with the princess-like pampering she was used to. I nodded slightly and replied calmly, "Come back soon." Then I stood up and walked toward the door. Just as I was about to leave, she suddenly asked from behind, "Aren't you going to stop me?" I turned around and saw her standing there, her eyes full of surprise. I smiled, said nothing more, and just turned and left. Today, I'm no longer the man who is willing to give everything for her. Even her self-righteous attitude makes me feel disgusted. Everything seemed so busy at work that I had almost no time to think about her. Until 6 p.m., I received a photo from Jessica. In the photo, she and Ryan were sitting in a restaurant, and they looked very close to each other. This photo made me stunned, and mixed emotions surged in my heart. In the past, she never took the initiative to share these things with me, and always asked me to get to the bottom of it, forcing her to admit it in the end. But today, she sent it to me directly without any hesitation. This abnormal behavior made me a little crazy. Looking back on those days, I was anxious and worried because of her indifference and neglect. I even suffered from anxiety disorder and relied on sleeping pills to fall asleep every night. Whenever I heard Ryan's name, my heart was like being grabbed by an invisible hand, beating violently, and cold sweat broke out uncontrollably. Ryan, he is like my nemesis, the devil in my heart. Whenever he appears in my life, my heart cannot be at peace. I used to think that only by completely eliminating him from my world can I find peace. But this time, I did not feel the kind of strong anger and uneasiness, but calmed down as if this was just an ordinary gathering of friends and another friend, nothing special. Ryan, the photo, looked a little haggard. Maybe he really broke up. The chaotic emotions in my heart only lasted for a few minutes, and then I turned my attention back to the work at hand. Strangely, as time went by, I found that I no longer cared about Jessica. I no longer cared about her mood, whether she had eaten enough, slept well, or even who she was chatting with and what she talked about. These issues that once made me anxious now seemed insignificant. In the past, I wasted my time on these trivial matters every day. Should I prepare dinner? Should I buy some dessert? What drinks and fruits are in the refrigerator? These questions once occupied my entire mind. However, today, Facing the reality that Jessica is no longer home, I am not as panicked as I was in the past. I don't ask about her whereabouts or call her bestie to find her. If she didn't come home all night before, I would be like an ant on a hot pot, extremely anxious, and even wanted to call the police until I found her. Once, she didn't come home all night, and I almost didn't sleep all night, worrying about what might happen to her. Finally, the police found her at her friend's house, and we had a fierce quarrel over this matter. At that time, I almost lost my mind and overturned the coffee table in anger. The Cold War lasted for half a month. Finally, I took the initiative to apologize to her, but she just looked at me indifferently and said coldly, "If you overturn the coffee table again next time, are you going to hit me?" At that time, I had almost lost myself. I loved her to the extreme. Even for her, I was willing to jump off the building, but I never hurt her in the slightest. And this crazy love finally made her confess to me. She had wanted to leave me many times because my persistence made her feel scared and even thought I was a little mentally ill. Hearing this, I just smiled bitterly. Yes, who among adults would risk their lives for these issues? But today, Jessica didn't come home. I didn't call her, nor did I wait anxiously for her news. I just washed up, played with my phone, and went to bed as usual. That night, I felt a long-lost peace. There was no torture of those crazy thoughts, nor the fear caused by her every move. I realized how tiring my previous life was. Jessica in the company. She took the initiative to explain to me. I drank too much with Ryan last night, and I slept at Eva's house. She said that Eva and Ryan had a good relationship and had a relationship for a while in college, and later they both stayed in this city. Eva also introduced Ryan to rent a house, so they lived in the same community. I nodded after listening, but this was just the beginning of silence. The silence between us has become longer and longer. Even as I walked out of the community, I received a photo sent by Ryan. In the photo, Jessica was lying on the bed, and Ryan was lying next to her. The picture was a bit overwhelming. There was no text, just a still photo. Ryan has contact information early so that I could find out Jessica's whereabouts. This time, the photo made me feel emotional, but I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone, took the bus to the company, as usual, and closed my eyes to rest. Strangely, I didn't feel angry or irritated during the whole journey. The numbness surprised me a little. Less than half an hour after arriving at the company, Jessica also rushed over, her face full of panic and guilt. I knew that Ryan must have forwarded this photo to her. He was trying to sow discord between us. I knew that Ryan had not given up on Jessica. This person has a complicated mind and is scheming. I saw this as early as when I was in school. He always behaves in subtle ways that are hard to understand. Whenever he speaks softly to me like this, he appears calm on the surface, but his heart is already turbulent. "William, come out for a moment." Jessica's voice broke my thoughts. I looked at her, and there was a hint of pleading in her eyes that she had never seen before. She had never looked at me like this before. Perhaps because of what happened tonight, she was really a little panicked. I stood up calmly and walked with her to the company's fire escape. We stood at the dim staircase, not speaking to each other, and the atmosphere was so oppressive that it made people breathless. Finally, she was the first to break the silence. I was drunk. Ryan said he would take me home, but I was taken to his place without knowing what was going on. When she said this, there was a hint of helplessness on her face, but her eyes were still flickering with anxiety. "So, you stayed at Ryan's house last night?" I asked, my tone as cold as ice. "I didn't sleep. I really didn't sleep." She explained hastily. "I just sat on the sofa and spent the night with my eyes open." I smiled slightly, but my heart was not moved. "Oh, I see. Didn't you say you were staying at your bestie's house? You used to blame me for not giving you freedom, calling me childish and imagining nonsense all the time. Now I am not childish anymore, and I don't have any nonsense thoughts anymore. So, you should be happy. Are you free in your relationship? No one can restrain you." I continued, looking at her coldly. Jessica's expression froze. She seemed to be hit hard by my words. It seemed that there was no trust between us anymore. She took a deep breath and was about to speak, but she found that I was no longer the person who was willing to give everything for her. "William, Could you please stop being so childish? There's really nothing between Ryan and me. We're just ordinary friends, she said with a slightly annoyed tone. I waved my hand impatiently and said, Jessica, I have to work overtime tonight. There is nothing to explain. I am not angry, and I don't want to explain it unclearly anymore. After that, I turned around and walked back to my workstation without looking back, continuing to organize the meeting materials with my head down. In the office, a colleague whispered, William, you are too tired. Listen to my advice. You and Jessica are not suitable. You really are not suitable. The more beautiful a woman is, the more flies will be around her. You can't keep her away. I didn't argue. In the past, I might have argued, even used some sharp words to defend our relationship. But today, I didn't say anything. I just smiled and nodded slightly. Sometimes, a man's growth may only take a moment. At night, Jessica called me, but I didn't answer. Then came the second and third calls. I finally picked up the phone and pressed the answer button. William, I'm at the company gate. I'm here to pick you up. Let's go eat. Her voice was a little apologetic. I'm sorry. Even if there's nothing between Ryan and me, I shouldn't have lied to you. I whispered, It's okay. I'm really not angry. I still have to work overtime. If you are tired, go to bed first and don't wait for me. After saying that, I decisively hung up the phone, but an inexplicable anger rose in my heart. Half an hour later, I saw an update on Jessica's social media app. In the photo, she and Ryan were having dinner together and smiling very intimately. My heart sank suddenly, and the feeling of betrayal came over me again. I held the phone tightly, and my anger almost made me tremble. Jessica was deliberately trying to piss me off, trying to force me to bow my head first and get me back to her. That night, after returning home, Jessica didn't turn on the light and sat alone on the sofa. Didn't you sleep? She yawned, with a hint of fatigue in her tone. I'm hungry. You can order some takeout. You told me before that eating takeout is bad for your health, and that the kitchens of those businesses are very dirty. I responded indifferently. After a short conversation, silence filled the air again. I know that this silence is not because we have nothing to say, but because we both understand each other's helplessness. When we first got together, we could talk about everything all day long. At that time, Jessica would share her interesting stories of the day at night. We had dreams for the future and thought that when we made enough money, we would buy a house in this city and get married. But now, all the enthusiasm has disappeared, and Jessica's resistance has gradually replaced the former tenderness. I've taken care of her countless times, cared about her, and habitually done everything for her, but I'm no longer the boy who gave unconditionally to her. William, you've been becoming more and more perfunctory towards me. Is it because I drank too much that night and had dinner with Ryan? She finally couldn't help but speak, with a hint of panic in her voice. I remained silent, lit a cigarette, took a deep puff, and the familiar pleasure made me relax a little. At this time, she changed the subject again. I bought a new set of underwear, specially for you. Her tiredly, I'm tired, go to the room and rest. After saying that, I turned and went into the bedroom and closed the door. This room was originally intended for my friend's parents to stay overnight. Whenever we were in a Cold War and slept in separate rooms, I almost always stayed here. I didn't care what Jessica was thinking or doing sitting in the living room. She used to complain to Ryan every time she had an argument with him, but I had long been numb and no longer cared about it. An unprecedented sense of relief came over me. Love, something that once made me feel desperate, has now become so easy. I once loved her deeply and was willing to give up everything for her, but when I no longer love her, it is so easy to make the decision to leave. The transformation of love is like something you lose in an instant. When you love her to death, it can destroy everything you have. But once you no longer love her, it even becomes terrifying for yourself. It's like I have become a different person, and all the warmth has become distant. This indifference and silence lasted for 3 days, until the fourth night, when Jessica called me, her tone full of pleading. William, don't eat takeout at the company tonight. Come back. I have a surprise for you. Her voice was filled with unusual anxiety. I was stunned, Not because she was going to give me a surprise, but because I realized that Jessica might have secretly come to the company and even watched me from a distance. How could she know that I missed the cafeteria's mealtime every time after work and ordered takeout by myself? My state obviously made her realize something, but I really didn't love her anymore, and all the past seemed to become unimportant in an instant. I opened the door and saw Jessica standing at the door, wearing an apron. The room exuded the warmth of home, and the table was filled with home-cooked meals and wine. Eva and Ryan were also there. Ryan saw me come in and stood up to apologize. "William, I'm sorry I drank too much that night. I impulsively brought Jessica to my place and took pictures. I'm really sorry." I felt calm at heart, and Eva explained with a hint of sarcasm and a smile. "William, Jessica told me that as a man, I should be generous when necessary." I finally understood that this so-called surprise was arranged by Jessica. She asked Eva and Ryan to come over to persuade me. I looked at them calmly and spread my hands helplessly. I'm really not angry. This time, Jessica finally panicked. Her eyes were full of panic that I had never seen before, almost with a hint of fear. She looked at me and was silent for a long time. I turned to look at Ryan and suddenly asked a question that no one could understand. "How is it? Jessica, is your sleep still the same as before?" The whole living room fell silent instantly. Eva and Ryan obviously didn't expect me to ask such a question. I used a nonchalant and even indifferent attitude to fight back all their worries. "Okay, let's eat first. Jessica, you can cook." I sat down and started eating the food on the table. Ryan looked at me curiously. "Jessica has always been able to cook. Hasn't she cooked for you?" I looked at him, feeling a little angry. Jessica's smugness was full of superiority in her eyes, but I was like a loser in an irreparable game. Since the day I pursued Jessica, almost all of her food, accommodation, and transportation were covered by me. Even if Jessica wanted to show something, she was often cut off by my enthusiastic actions. Now, there's no need to care about these things because we don't love each other anymore. "William, don't talk nonsense. Jessica and I are just ordinary friends now," Ryan said coldly. His voice was extremely cold. Something unexpected happened. Ryan suddenly attacked me without any warning. I also didn't expect that something I said or did would completely anger him. In front of Jessica and Eva, Ryan and I wrestled. He was a big man, but he had no strength at all. The man who attacked me at first was pinned to the ground by me and rubbed hard. It was Jessica who pulled me away. She stood in front of Ryan and cursed in a tone I had never heard before. "William, are you crazy?" She whispered. "Ryan, are you okay?" I was stunned. Tears almost welled up in my eyes, and my nose was bleeding. Jessica kept pulling out tissues to wipe the blood off Ryan's face. At that moment, I became the abuser and Ryan became the victim. The room was quiet and the air was stagnant. Eva and Ryan left in a hurry, and Jessica and I sat at the dining table facing each other. At this moment, she remembered that my face was covered with blood from my nose, and she was about to wipe it off for me, but I dodged her. "William, you are really in trouble." Jessica's voice was as cold as ice. Her coldly, "Didn't the problem between us appear a long time ago? It's just that at that time, you didn't care and I was avoiding it. Only you can feel my love for you. I tolerate everything and care about you too much. But feelings are two-way, and people are made of flesh and blood. The accumulation of a long time will also make people sad and tired." Jessica was silent, with a flash of pain in her eyes. I looked straight at her, my tone still calm. "Jessica, we're breaking up." When I said this, there was no burden in my heart, just like I decided to do something that no longer needed to be delayed. She was stunned. Her eyes changed from shock to confusion, and finally to bewilderment. "William," she finally found her voice, her tone a little hurried. "Today is your birthday. Let's get married. Let's get married." Jessica took out a cake from behind her back, and I realized that she had secretly prepared it before. There was still a box of unopened cake under the table. She had obviously prepared it for a long time, but I didn't notice it. "Come on, cut it. Today is your birthday." I told the people at the custom cake shop to put the 18-year-old candle. A man is a teenager until he dies, and he is always 18 years old. I remained silent, as if everything in front of me no longer belonged to me. I saw her pretending to be calm, and her smile became a little stiff. I have prepared a ring for you. William, please marry me. I didn't do well enough before. I was too willful and ignored your feelings. I am very glad to find you and become your other half. I will change all my little willfulness. If you don't allow me to drink, I will quit drinking. If you don't allow me to stay with Ryan, I will block all his contact information. I remained silent, without a single wave of emotion. Seeing that I had no reaction, Jessica suddenly hugged me and said anxiously, William, I was wrong. I didn't realize what happened just now. I was really wrong. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. I love you, William. I will go crazy without you. Please say something. Her tears fell, and she held my hand tightly. I stood there, letting her hold me like this, but my heart was calm. This person who I once loved deeply was no longer important to me. I shook her hand away and said in a decisive voice, Let's break up, Jessica. You have been avoiding our problems, and I have already decided to leave. At that moment, I saw her shocked expression change from panic to collapse, and her voice was high and fierce. You want to break up with me? Who do you think of me? She held me tightly, as if she was afraid I would disappear. But I didn't waver. I know that adults need to learn to let go, and a decent breakup can even be a kind of romance. I was wrong, William. I was really wrong. Jessica choked up and said, Ryan and I didn't do anything that night. I was wrong. You're right. Feelings are two-way. I always thought you would wait for me. I thought you would forgive me. Her coldly, I'm no longer waiting for you. I haven't sent you a message since half a year ago. You haven't even noticed that I no longer call you every night to care about the relationship between you and Ryan. I broke away from Jessica's embrace and turned back to my room. I didn't feel any reluctance in my heart, and even packing my luggage seemed so calm. I walked into the room and carefully packed my simple clothes. This place that used to be called home had long lost its warmth. The suitcase was half empty, as if it represented the distance between me and this place. Jessica's crying came from the living room, and I could hear her voice almost tearing. I didn't look back, and I had only one decision in my heart. William, you bastard. Her words were like a painful blade cutting through my heart, but I no longer cared. My decision has been made. Jessica, it's all over. That night, I left completely. I had already prepared a new house and contacted the landlord. As long as I paid the rent, I could move in. Jessica opened her arms to block the door, tears in her eyes. William, please don't leave me alone. I'm afraid of loneliness, afraid of the days without you. I looked at her and responded coldly. Don't we still have Ryan? You said that every time you were the most lonely and needed company, he was the one who accompanied you. At that moment, I understood that it was time for Jessica to end. I woke up from my dream half a year ago. The next day, I moved into the new house with a calm heart. I didn't think about Jessica all night. Her tears and her pleading no longer moved me. I didn't know if the sequelae of the breakup would come, but I knew that from now on, I would never look back. Jessica still showed up on time every day at my company, and everyone in the company knew about it. The company's leader came to me several times and advised me not to let my personal life affect my work. But he never thought that Jessica had become a shadow that I could not get rid of, and her every move made me unable to calm down. A few days later, Jessica even cried and begged me at the entrance of the company. Like a woman who cares most about her reputation, she made the most humble move in public. She almost knelt in front of me. I didn't respond, but just looked at her coldly, without a trace of emotion in my heart. The person I once loved deeply has now become a complete stranger. On the 5th day after the breakup, I made a decision to quit this job. I didn't pack anything, and even asked my colleagues to sign the HR documents for me. I seemed to have suddenly disappeared from this world, as if all the connections with Jessica were cut off in an instant. I blocked all contact information of Mu Xian and Ryan. Just like my world and Jessica's world will never have any intersection. From then on, we were just passing by in each other's life, no longer owed each other anything, only left gracefully and went our separate ways. During the job search period, I had almost no time to stop. I went out early and came back late every day, and my busy life left me no time to think about her. The economic downer made it difficult to find a suitable job, but compared to this painful relationship, I don't think these difficulties are anything now. I know very well that since I have the ability to love her, I also have the ability to let go of this love. As others have said, when you love someone, you should let go without hesitation. However, I thought I could live in this peaceful life until the 10th day after the breakup, when I had just submitted my resume and dragged my tired body back to the rental house. I saw Jessica beside the flower bed outside the door. She was sitting there with a case of beer in front of her, obviously very drunk. When she saw me, a gleam in her eyes, she rushed towards me crying, stumbling, and trying to hug me. But I moved aside and she fell directly to the ground. She got up without hesitation and continued to rush towards me. Seeing her desperately hugging me, I shouted at her, "Are you childish? You are a proud woman. You are an adult. Don't you understand what you are doing?" At that moment, I felt mixed emotions. I once knelt down in front of Jessica and explained my love for her, and even jumped out of the window to prove myself. Thinking back on it, I still feel scared. Jessica cried loudly on the street like a child who had done something wrong, her voice trembling. "William, I was wrong, really wrong. I was too selfish in this relationship. I started to get scared of losing you. I was scared of not having you. I couldn't sleep all night. I love you. Please give me a chance. Let's get back together." Her coldly, "Who taught you to do this?" She stood there in a daze, not understanding what I meant. "No one taught me." Jessica burst into tears. "This is all my true words. I didn't lie to you. Why don't you give me a chance?" I sneered. "Who taught you to sit downstairs for me and drink? How did you find my address?" Once upon a time, I loved this woman desperately and wished I could stay with her every moment. But now, all my feelings have become the motivation to escape. Jessica wiped away her tears and sobbed. "I found out where you live through a conversation you had with a colleague. She said you were going to move here. I learned your new address from her. As for drinking, Ryan taught me." When I heard Ryan's name, in the past, every time Jessica wanted to see Ryan, she would use this method, drinking. And it always worked. Ryan, the position of that man in Jessica's heart, made me envious countless times. That man with eyes like a deer, who was born with a good relationship with women, never lacked suitors. "You already know very well what position Ryan holds in your heart," I said coldly. "And you also know that it is meaningless for you to compare me with her." Jessica was stunned for a moment, as if she realized something. "But, William, I have changed." She choked. "I have really changed. I know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I will correct all my mistakes for you." I looked at the tearful woman in front of me and felt a chill. She wanted to escape from the mistakes of the past and go back to the old times, but I knew that our relationship could no longer go back to the past. Jessica, frantically, with a hint of impatience in my voice, "You have become what you are now, and you are no longer the person I know." I watched as people around me began to whisper and point fingers at me. The existence of the spectators often makes people extremely uneasy, especially when they only see part of the matter and cannot understand the whole picture. Jessica stood in front of me. Her pitiful appearance attracted the attention of passers-by. Who would care about other things? Anyway, bystanders can never understand the truth. I took a deep breath, let go of Jessica, and turned back to my room. Jessica stood there, her body trembling slightly, her eyes fixed on me, and she kept shouting, "William, I won't give up." But I knew that this time, I had made up my mind not to look back. She didn't leave, but stayed downstairs, drinking beer and muttering to herself. That night, she didn't leave, and even changed into her wedding dress in the car, still sitting in the car, drinking beer until dawn. I began to become the topic of everyone's mouth, and some people even began to whisper about me and heard the echo of my name, but I didn't feel any uneasiness. Jessica's determination surprised me again and again. She seemed to have changed. A few days later, I moved into a new house, and she moved across from me, becoming an image I couldn't escape. Every night, she would buy meals at a nearby supermarket, and when I came back, The meals were already warm, as if she had been expecting it long ago. "William, you're back," I cooked. "Your favorite scrambled eggs with tomatoes, stir-fried bacon with Chinese spinach, braised pork with preserved vegetables, and stewed pork ribs with ground beans. The food is still hot, and I'll reheat it in the microwave every few minutes." She looked at me expectantly. I looked at her, speechless. Once upon a time, I would prepare these for her late at night. For her, I was willing to endure anything I didn't like, just like that damn bitter melon. Although I couldn't swallow at one time, as long as she liked it, I gritted my teeth and swallowed it. Now, all these memories make me feel extremely painful. "I can't eat bitter melon, Jessica," I responded coldly. "I only started to accept these dishes you mentioned because you like them. I didn't like them before. I ate bitter melon because you like it." I took a deep breath and recalled the time we spent together. At that time, I always silently tolerated her and ignored my own feelings just to make her happy. Jessica was stunned, with an indescribable pain in her eyes. She whispered, "What on earth did I do before?" Her voice was weak and trembling, as if she was afraid to hear the answer. I waved my hands and stopped thinking about the past. "I've eaten, Jessica. You eat." I didn't want to give her any hope, nor did I want to continue this meaningless torture. I had decided to leave this place that once belonged to us, and stay away from those painful memories. Jessica still stood there, almost collapsed. "William, I was really wrong. I never really cherished you. You were so good to me, but I didn't repay you." She began to lose control, tears already welling up in her eyes. "I can't live without you, William. Please give me a chance. I will change for you." Her calmly, without any emotion in my heart. "Jessica, there is no point in changing. You don't understand. Not all love can go back to the past." I said softly, "I once lost my mind for you, but now, I am no longer that person." That night, Jessica knocked on my door, her voice full of despair. Through the peephole, I saw that she was holding a knife tightly in her hand, and a bloody mark slowly crossed her wrist. I quickly opened the door and snatched the knife before she could move. "Don't do anything stupid," I shouted angrily, and she had completely lost her mind. But to my surprise, she suddenly rushed over, hugged me tightly, pressed her lips against mine madly, and tore my clothes with her hands. I pushed her away with all my strength, and at that moment, I couldn't stand it anymore. If the previous things were just unintentional, then this time, she was definitely doing these things on purpose. She fell to the ground, her clothes in disarray. Since the 3rd year of our relationship, I was the one who took the initiative in all the intimate things, but she always looked annoyed. At one point, I began to be afraid to face her, and I didn't want to touch those silent eyes anymore. Gradually, I began to face the loneliness of those nights alone, and even when I went to the toilet in the middle of the night, I solved it by myself, no longer willing to face her indifference. 5 years later, Jessica finally took the initiative to approach me. But at this time, I was no longer the soft-hearted me. After we separated, I stood there, looking at her, with mixed emotions in my heart. "Are you still a child?" I laughed at myself in my heart. We had spent those wonderful and fulfilling times together. Jessica was so warm and dependent on me. I thought she was everything to me until Ryan showed up in the 3rd year. I realized that the world in her heart no longer belonged to me. Jessica lowered her head, looked at the ground, and cried a little. "William, only when I stood in your position and gave my all for you did I know that it was really that difficult. It was really difficult." I closed my eyes and recalled every detail of those years. It turned out that she already had the answer in her heart. We were so close and intimate. She may have never forgotten those times. Even from his 2nd year, when Ryan appeared, she knew that our relationship had quietly changed. "Can we have a calm chat?" She looked at me with longing in her eyes. I finally nodded. We sat on the sofa, and I watched her skillfully take a cigarette from my cigarette pack and light it up. At that moment, I realized that she had learned to smoke, and I had never noticed it. She sat next to me and slowly exhaled a puff of smoke. "Remember? In school, you were always so outstanding. I sat in front of you, didn't understand anything, and you always patiently answered my questions." She smiled and looked at me. "You were the president of the student union at that time, and many people in the class were chasing you. You were always so perfect and so enthusiastic. Every time you smiled at me, it was my happiest moment. I didn't say anything, just listened quietly. In those years, she and I were like people from two different worlds, with an indescribable attraction and dependence on each other. But now, everything has changed. My love at that time started with admiration, and I knew that I would never fall in love with anyone else again. Jessica whispered, as if she was thinking of those days that had long gone. Jessica's eyes were gentle, and she seemed to be recalling that time. I know that you always looked at me silently at that time, enjoying my little care for you. You gave so much for me, but I didn't know how to cherish it. I sighed. At that time, I thought I could always stand by your side and never leave you, but when Ryan showed up, I panicked. Who could be willing to do that? She sighed softly, seeming to be very sad, but helpless. You were my everything. I gave a lot for you. Her voice was a little choked, but when I wanted to let you go, I found that I couldn't help myself. I looked into her eyes, feeling mixed emotions. At that moment, I knew that we had missed each other. You said there were stars in your eyes, but now you can't see anything. I stood up and slowly walked towards the door, my heart filled with endless fatigue. Jessica hurriedly stood up, walked to me, stood on tiptoe, and hugged my neck with a hint of pleading in her voice. Let me kiss you again, okay? Her lips came closer to mine. I didn't dodge or avoid her. I stood there and let her get closer. At that moment, it was as if time had stopped, and the only thing left in our world was the sound of each other's breathing. But a few years have changed everything for us. Just like our kiss, it was so sweet, but now it has become so heavy. We can no longer find the feeling we once had, as if everything has been broken. Jessica's eyes were filled with tears, and those tears seemed to be shed for our missed opportunities and regrets. I gently closed the door and squatted down, tears flowing out like a flood, unable to control. Pain and confusion intertwined in my heart. I knew that this time, I could not give myself and her any chance. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I had made up my mind and had already bought the train ticket back home. Goodbye, Jessica. This relationship has come to an end. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. At 8 o'clock the next morning, I checked out of the hotel and turned off my phone. Without any hesitation, I carried my suitcase and headed for the only place in my life that could still make me feel peaceful, my home. I may never come back to this city. Whether I am willing or regretful, this city carries too many memories of mine, whether they're joy, pain, or even despair. In order to leave, I carefully avoided Jessica's working hours, intending to avoid meeting her as much as possible. I took a taxi to the train station. When I stood at the door, I was stunned again. She was standing there. She stood there calmly, as if nothing had changed. Our eyes met, and at that moment, I saw the fatigue in her eyes, as if she had been waiting for me here the whole night. There was no hesitation, no retreat. Jessica actually made such a decision. She was willing to wait just to see me again. When are you leaving? Her voice was calm, but with an unignorable nervousness. I know you'll go, William, she said, with an irrepressible longing in her eyes. But we'll never see each other again, will we? I nodded, my heart aching, but I didn't say anything. I just whispered, I'm leaving. This time, I'm really leaving. She didn't say anything else, but snatched the suitcase from my hand and led me to the waiting hall. We walked side by side, so quietly that it seemed as if time had stopped. There were no words, only silence, and only the helplessness in each other's hearts. The train arrived on time. Jessica carried my suitcase and walked me to the train slowly. She stared at me with reluctance and despair in her eyes. William, let's walk back to back, counting the steps in our hearts, until we are 10 steps away. If you are still standing there when I turn around, or haven't boarded the train, we'll get back together, get married, leave this city, and start a new life. Her voice was trembling, and she tried hard to suppress her inner emotions. I looked at her. My heart was full of mixed emotions. Her determination made me more certain that this time, I could never turn back. Are you so sure that I will look back? I asked coldly. Her eyes were firm and unwavering. I believe you will come back because I am the woman you love most in your life. I said nothing more, turned my back to her, and began to walk slowly and firmly toward the train. One step, two steps, three steps, until the 10th step, I didn't look back. The train door closed, and I stood in the carriage, looking at her outside the window. She was only 20 steps away, but it seemed as if there were mountains and seas between us. Her figure gradually went further and further away, and I knew that this time we were completely broken up. Jessica's tears flowed like a flood. Her hands pressed against the car window, as if she wanted to grab something to save something. She fell, then got up, fell, then got up again, until her figure completely disappeared. The last bit of warmth in my heart turned cold. The fog on the car window gradually blurred, and I couldn't see her face clearly. Only the handprint left on the foggy car window became our last mark. "Goodbye, Jessica," I whispered, my lips trembling slightly, but my voice was extremely firm. This person who once made me madly love has become a part of my life, and this part will be engraved in my heart forever. The train's pace began to speed up, taking me away from the past, and the pain was gradually diluted by time. I understand that life is always full of unforeseen turns. We can't choose the people we meet, nor can we choose the people we leave. But we can choose whether to continue to be trapped in the past, or to take a brave step forward and meet a brand new self. "Goodbye, William." I suddenly heard a whisper in my ear. It was my heart saying goodbye to the future, with a hint of reluctance, but full of power. At this moment, my heart is no longer broken, but has been repaired and become strong. No matter how many challenges lie ahead, I am ready to face them all. No one and nothing can stop me from pursuing happiness. I know that one day, I will meet the person who is worth my efforts again, and she will be the most beautiful scenery in my life.